Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Launch or Relaunch Your Job Search. I'm happy to see you all today. Thanks so much for being here. If we haven't met before, my name's Jen Walker Wall. I'm the founder of Work Wonders Careers, and I help mission driven professionals move their careers forward, make moves that matter, typically through some career coaching strategy and improved resumes. So, I'm going to be talking today about launching or relaunching your job search. I have found that probably the two most challenging aspects, hey Jen, the two most challenging aspects are getting started and moving the needle. And moving the needle can look like a lot of different things depending on sort of where you are in that stage. And unless you're ready to actively apply or actively applying, it can be hard to know, like, how are you evaluating your work? So that's what I want to be sharing today. And if you've come to these before, you know that I usually hop on and just chat about a career related topic or a job search related topic. And today I am using the webinar format. I've got some slides and I'm going to be moving you through 5 very specific challenges that get in people's way as they try to start their job search. So the first one being immersed in fears and questions and concerns about the unknown, the idea of actually starting their job search. Like, how are you supposed to do that? Do you just start applying? What does that look like? And then how to effectively convey your qualifications. So when people come to me after job searching for a while and applying to jobs for a while, usually where they're stuck at is the conveying your qualifications effectively. So doing that really intentionally and strategically to actually get results from your resume, which is what we believe should be happening. I would say 85 to 90% of our clients get traction through applying cold online. And of course, another thing we'll discuss is networking, because if you have those relationships, absolutely, you can be using them as part of this process, and that can be very effective as well. And then finally, we're going to talk about what it's like to be on and off the job search, the ups and the downs, the periods of intense activity followed by days or weeks or maybe even months of no activity. So I see this so often. And I have some thoughts on it, as you can imagine. So I want to talk about re-engaging the job search process, which is like language I like to use because it doesn't sound like we're judging ourselves. So if you're here, feel free to say hello. Let me know where you're watching from. If you are watching the replay, feel free to leave any questions and give this a share if you think someone in your network, your LinkedIn network, might benefit from watching it. This will live here on LinkedIn. So if you miss part of it or if you're coming in late, you should be able to see the recording pretty much immediately after we wrap up today. So I love LinkedIn Lives because it's just so easy, immediate access to the replay. So let's, before we dive in, let me say we do have a fall accelerator launching this month. It is October, right? Yes. Launching this month. We're starting October 17th. And just for today, for people who watch this and maybe folks on my mailing list, if I get around to it, you can use our early bird discount code, which technically expired last week, but we reactivated it for all of you. October 50. Go to workwonderscareers.com, take off October 50 with your promotion code, and you'll get a $50 discount plus a full length strategy session with me, plus immediate access to our content and community. And you can get started before October 17th. So that we'll transform your resume and job search together. All right, now that I've said all that, let's dive in here. Obviously, if you're here, we're probably connected on LinkedIn, but please know you can get a hold of me and ask me questions over on Instagram or on TikTok. Happy to hear from you and follow up with any questions you might have about today's workshop or about the accelerator itself. So tell me if any of this sounds familiar. You email yourself or flag jobs, but you rarely actually apply. Maybe your resumes and emails go unanswered, so you are actually submitting, but you're just not hearing anything back. It's like crickets. You sign up for a bunch of webinars and workshops, but you're not applying what you're learning. you're so overwhelmed that starting a job search feels impossible. So maybe work is really stressful or you've got some personal stuff going on. So if these are challenges that you have currently, please know that they can be addressed. Like these are not deal breakers for your job search. So today I'm going to walk you through these areas where you can make shifts, 5 specific areas where you can make shifts and changes to your job search that I hope will put you back in the driver's seat. And that's really what we do. There's so much in this process that we don't control. So we try to pay really close attention to the areas that we can control because it turns out those are influential and can be very effective in this process. I think one of the most challenging things is managing your expectations around the job search. Corey says, "I excel at flagging jobs to apply to." Yes, we love to email ourselves jobs. If only that was a needle moving strategy, we wouldn't need to gather today. So I really want to talk about managing your own expectations in this process because a lot of people come in, especially in the last, right, like 18 months, where it seems like everyone is quitting their job and getting a new one. And it seems like it's really easy. And here at Work Wonders, like we don't hyper focus on speed and urgency. And it's not that our clients don't come with those desires, but I think what we're best known for is helping people make moves that are really in alignment to really evaluate what they're looking for. Because sometimes the fastest move isn't the most strategic, isn't the best, isn't the most impactful for your own career. And there are times when you just sometimes need to leave a job. And there are times when you can say to yourself, I'm ready to leave this job, but I want my next move to make a difference. I want it to be the right role. I'm not trying to spend my time job searching for the next 3 to 5 years. I'm ready to get this over with. And I think that that's where we can be really helpful. I also want you to realize that what you need to do may not look like what other people need to do in this process. We have been bringing people together through workshops and group programs and community to do their job search together. But that does not mean everyone is like step for step doing the same thing. The big rocks, big picture, yeah, everyone's pretty much doing the same thing. We don't have a ton of, you know, novel strategies for landing a new job beyond what you can probably imagine. But at a really granular level, things do look different. Some people need to spend more time really working on figuring out how to effectively convey their value to different kinds of jobs. Some people have to figure out, what their target roles even look like at this point. So be mindful that you're going to get a lot of information and it may not all be for you. So please feel free to ask questions as we go. I'm happy to try and workshop this. And of course, I'm just happy to answer questions and give feedback and figure out what it's going to take to move you forward here. So where I want to start in this workshop is sort of where I think a lot of clients are when they reach out, which is feeling like they have a lot of fear, a lot of questions, a lot of concerns, and they're not necessarily super clear either on where they're going or what they're bringing to the table, and they're not feeling super confident. So here are some of the questions that I hear when I'm talking to people on consults or when I'm doing webinars like this, especially this first one here. What if my next job is worse than the one I have now is probably one of the most common fears. And what I notice is that when people are carrying these fears, that's like the full-time job. It's really all that can be done. It doesn't inspire us in any obvious way towards action. It makes us feel like there's nowhere to go. There's nothing we can do. And what I want to encourage you to do is not to diminish these fears, because I think there's a lot of wisdom in these questions that we should bring with us. But I want to think about how we can operationalize that wisdom. How do we take these fears and questions and turn them into something that we can explore? Well, what would it mean for your next job to be worse? What would that look like? What would a better job look like? Let's get really granular about something like that. And as we kind of build clarity over time, not having all that insight all at once, but building it over time through reflection, through research, through conversations, through interviews, we can work with fear and through fear rather than letting it fully stop us. So one of the things we like to, hi, Michael, welcome. Hey, David, sorry, didn't see you pop in here. Yes, it'll be recorded, so no worries about that. So some ways that we try to remind people that they are able to do this work with fear and uncertainty. In fact, it would be really strange if you didn't have any questions or any fears or any lack of clarity as you started your job search. You are the CEO of your job search. Like, you get to make all of the strategic decisions, and no one's going to force you to accept a job that you ultimately don't want. So try to remember, like, you get to make a lot of decisions here. You're the leader, and you get to make the calls. So remember your power there, because there's a lot of micro decisions in this process that people tend to forget. Turn your fears into questions. So that helps us think, like, okay, what if my next job is worse? Well, what would a better job look like? How can I make the job I have now 15 or 20% better? What would that look like? And give yourself an opportunity to really reflect and get clear and think through. Or if you're like, well, I've had a gap, I've been out for a while. What are the things you really want recruiters and hiring stakeholders to know about you? Like, what are those qualifications that you have that you want to put front and center instead of that story that you're telling yourself? Get really clear and granular on that. I want you to think about practicing and experimenting with storytelling strategies. There's more than one way to do this well. There's more than one way to tell a compelling story. There's definitely more than one story that we all have to share. And that part of engaging in this process is that you get to kind of workshop those stories frequently and figure out the best way that you feel most comfortable telling them, and also that are kind of the most strategic for your candidacy. I also want you to think about building skills and connections as you go. So if you're worried about a skills gap, build learning into the process. We have a lot of clients who do this. And it's really important that as part of this process, certainly for the folks that we work with, that you are clear on what you have to offer. And I think when you are really clear on your value, it's not quite as demoralizing to realize, like, there are things that you still have and want to learn. So getting really clear on those and being able to comfortably discuss what you have done and what you're really proud of, as well as, what are the growth opportunities that you're looking for. Having both of those in mind can be really helpful. Now, how will you know you're making progress? I think this is actually one of the hardest places to know that you're making progress, because we're not fully engaged in the search. This is about a little bit more in a reflective space. So I want you to be really aware of when you're making decisions. So if you're emailing yourself job postings and you select one to actually apply for, like, give yourself credit for that. Or if you decide not to apply for one, give yourself credit and get really clear and allow that to reinforce the kinds of decisions that you want to be making for yourself. You should have more and more information as you go through this process. So instead of just saying, what if my next job is worse than the one I have now? You could be able to say, the people at organization X are, like, notoriously unhappy and leaving in droves, and I'm not sure that that's a place to target my time and energy, but I've heard really good things from employees at, A, B, and C, so I'm going to focus my search over there. And hopefully you're no longer just scrolling endlessly or emailing yourself endlessly, right? You're starting to be able to pick things that you want to pursue. And this could be helpful, is like having those potential questions or areas to explore. So whatever is really important to you, having questions, having ways to explore that in the interview process, I think is really important. Yes, Corey says volunteering as a mentor has been very helpful to practice storytelling, building confidence, and networking. Yeah, that repetition is everything. Okay, so now that we've gotten clear and a little bit more granular about who we are, what we're looking for, let's talk about, like, slipping into job search mode, like actually putting applications and, invitations out there for conversations. So we have sort of a three-part approach to this. We have a lot of internal reflection. This could look like working with me directly or working with some of our curriculum to really sort of reflect and understand and process your own experience. We also have sort of an external part of this process where we have our clients look at their target job postings and identify patterns and themes and skills so that we can get clear on what people are expecting from them. And a lot of this is best sort of documented. I'm a big fan of having people write everything down, especially when you're sort of consistent applications and you're still trying to think about where you want to go and how you want to talk about yourself. Writing is a great way to sort of build an understanding of yourself. It's sort of our way of making sure that you are tracking your growth and your insight. It's going to make the next step a lot easier in terms of being consistent in your applications. So when you work with us, there's usually a lot of writing involved. Here are some of my favorite prompts. So if you only do these prompts, please at least do these prompts, right? So, what are you most proud of is hands down my favorite. And when I'm working with clients, especially like resume writing clients on that, that usually yields the best results. And oftentimes there's incredible things that are nowhere represented on their resume or cover letter or LinkedIn profile. So, if I only had one question, it would be that one. What do you want more of or less of? These are also really critical. And if you're struggling to sort of articulate like a grand vision for your next steps, start with these questions. Like start with the job you have and think, what would make this job better? What would make this job worse? And really focus on the things that you want to be on the lookout for and the things that you want to look for in your next role. And finally, I want you to think about the environment of your work. I don't think enough people think about the environment of their work. This is really the make or break stage. I think people are capable of doing a lot of things. And the people that I work with are multi-talented. They may be have very specific roles, but they're capable of doing a lot. I think that what often makes or breaks an experience at a particular organization is how accommodating that organization is for that person to be in. So I want you to really think like, what was the best environment, a working environment experience that you had? What were those qualities that allowed you to do your best work? And how can you be on the lookout for them as you move through this process? Here's how you'll know that you're making progress here. I'm hoping that this reflection process will make tailoring your resume easier and faster. I'm going to talk more explicitly about tailoring your resume in just a moment, but part of the reason we have people write so much content down is it's really like the basis of the content revisions that we'll go for when we're doing your resume, your cover letter, your portfolio, your about section, like all of that. So by moving through this process intentionally and strategically, we're making our future selves job a lot easier, which we love, of course. It should be easier to identify and speak to your experience. So hopefully you are finding some content that can be distilled into questions like, tell me about yourself. Or if you're doing networking, being able to talk about your interests and goals and experience in a clearer way. Hopefully, this clarity also makes it easier to apply more consistently. But we'll start with just having you apply it all. So if you are someone who's like not really in the application stage, I want you to think about what would it take for you to kind of rip the Band-Aid off there. And one fun thing, I think it's fun. I think our clients think it's fun. Is to have a low stakes job application. So don't worry so much about whether it's the perfect job, but go ahead and, pick a job that's a 6 or a 7 instead of a 9 or a 10. Tailor, practice, get that work in, and just have something you can say you did. Sometimes that low stakes job offer our job posting exercise is a really great way to just kind of hit reset, to stop waiting for like the perfect job to be posted and just kind of get into the swing of things. And ideally, you'll be getting some requests for phone screens and next steps. But if that's not happening for you at this stage, let's talk about what could be helpful. And let me just pause for a minute, to take a brief sip of water, but also just to say if there's any questions, feel free to drop them. I know I'm going fast, but I had like 2 cups of coffee right before I hopped on, and I stopped drinking coffee a few months ago. So now I notice it. Conveying your value effectively is how we help people get traction by applying cold online. And this is sort of a multifaceted process. I think just about anyone can do it. Depending on your background and your goals, it might take less time or more time. But I think that this is a skill that's really worth knowing how to do and how to do well. So anytime we have a client who's looking at a very specific job posting, we want them to sort of ask themselves like, okay, what's going on in this job posting? And clients tend to focus on the responsibilities section. And that makes sense. That is probably the best way, or one of the best ways, or at least part of, assessing if the job is going to be something you're compelled to pursue, right? But what we really want to focus on with our applications are the qualifications for the job. And those can change from organization to organization, to job posting to job posting. So I want you to really look at the qualifications for the job that you're applying to and think like, how clear is it that I meet these qualifications? Because it's not always clear, even when people are well qualified, that they have the qualifications here. And if you're looking at those qualifications and you're thinking to yourself, I don't have all of these, or I assume I don't have this because this is a new direction for me. I want you to really do some brainstorming and writing or brainstorming in response to the question, how are you qualified? People love to tell me how they're not qualified, but I want you to tell me how you are. And so I can give a lot of different examples from different professionals from all kinds of backgrounds who have put a job posting in front of me that they're interested in pursuing, but feel that they're unqualified for. But really, what the difference there is they were making some kind of career transition and they needed to do a little bit of work translating their experience so that it was clear that they had to check those boxes. And sometimes different industries or different roles will use slightly different language, and you will need to translate your work so that people can understand it. And finally, we have revise here. And we have a particular revision rule or practice here at Work Wonders. We do not write, resumes for applicant tracking systems. We write resumes for human readers. It might be a controversial take, but it's one that's worked for us for many years. And as a former human reader of resumes, I think that that's the way to go. So instead of putting in, lots of disembodied, keywords and like hoping the computer system, can sort through that, I write like I'm talking to someone, like I'm communicating with someone very specifically, like the people who wrote the job posting, as a matter of fact. Okay, Corey has a question here. Let me see. What if this thought process leads to I am overqualified? What excellent question. Yes. So I don't know. I think it depends. That's always my answer to a tough, good question. So I would be curious, like being overqualified, I don't think it means you wouldn't be good for the job. Does it mean taking your career into an institution that you're excited about? Are you so overqualified that it would look, it might look silly for you? I mean, to what degree are you overqualified? And to what degree do you know that, and what is still compelling? So I've seen people, take jobs that feel pretty lateral because they want to be in a different place, because they want to be in a different environment. They want to be, somewhere that offers them something that their current place doesn't, right? And I think if those factors are at play, a lateral move could be a beautiful way to potentially access what you don't have right now. If you realize you're so overqualified that they're asking for 2 years of experience and you've got 20, I think we could position things a lot more differently, but I would be really curious about what would be compelling to you about that. And there may be really good reasons for that to be compelling. So sometimes I see this like if people have been out of the workforce for quite some time, or if they simply do not want to be, in a higher role, which I've seen a lot of in the last couple of years. They don't want to be a manager. I think we just need to get super clear on why, or if you're still interested, and then it becomes if you are interested, it becomes a question of like, how do we position this in as clear and concise way as possible? If you're noticing that all of the jobs that you're applying to are overqualified, that might be another really interesting pattern to kind of reflect on. Does it feel really safe? Are there not a ton of other options? Do you just really like the job you're in, and maybe growth to you isn't like a straight, hierarchical climb, but is more like a, meandering? Like that's a perfectly reasonable way to manage your career or take a next step. But I would want you to have a good sense of that for yourself. Question from David. Let's see here. A given job posting requires 2 years of experience in Excel or other skill. I have coursework giving me skills, but not the work experience. Am I dead in the water, or can I overcome this situation? Another good question. I think more or less something like a specific skill and a specific set number of years of experience is going to probably depend on the level of skill needed to be exercised in the job. So, has your coursework prepared you to do what needs to be executed in the role via Excel? I wouldn't assume you're dead in the water. I would simply share the experience you have, and I would continue to develop Excel skills and try to, if you can figure out like what is this person doing with Excel in the job, can you say, yes, I've done that? Then that can be very compelling. So a lot of times these years of experience are about assumptions in terms of your depth of skill or the breadth of your skill. So I would look for hints about what they might be looking for there and try to be as clear about your skill as possible. But I wouldn't assume you're dead in the water. Nope. Okay, so let me just talk a little bit about a strategy we use here at Work Wonders called the summary of qualification strategy. And there's two reasons that I like this. So the first is a lot of our clients are like multi-passionate people, different industries and experiences in their background. And what we really want to do is make clear their relevant qualifications for the job at hand. And by using 3 to 5 bullet points at the top of their resume that speak not about them in a summary, but about their relevant qualifications in a summary, I think that that's really important. It can be very clear, very concise, very compelling. You'll see that these are fairly short lines. They're consolidated in this sort of graphic form, but it's brief, it's concise, it speaks to the number of years that were required, it speaks to the soft skills that were mentioned, it speaks to some of the technical skills that were mentioned. And so I really like to have people, learn how to do this. The second reason that I have people do this is because it's partly what helps build their confidence. When people just look at a lengthy resume with a lot of different kinds of experiences, even they're not sure what makes them qualified. They're just kind of like, here to the hiring, stakeholders, you tell me. But when people take the time to learn how to do this, it changes how they think about themselves. It gives them a little bit of flexibility in how they communicate. And so that's why I'm a big fan of this strategy. Changing the way you think about networking. I think it was last week, I had a great call with a client who, we were finished talking about her resume. Her resume is in a great space. And we were like, okay, like what's next? And I always like to ask people, what's your plan? What do you think your next steps are? Because this isn't, necessarily a prescriptive process. And she was saying to me, like, I know I have to do some networking and I hate LinkedIn and I hate asking people for things. And I said, okay, so can I ask you some questions? Can we talk about this? And I said, what would it be like? I said, do you have, 3, 4, 5 colleagues from your work history that you actually really enjoyed working with, but you haven't connected with in a while? Do you have people like that? Oh yeah, I have people like that. Okay, do you have mentors and people who might serve as references who you already know, but maybe you haven't connected with in a while? Oh yeah, I know people like that. And I said, are there people who might be interesting to talk to that you don't know, new people to meet who might have some insight? And if so, would you feel comfortable asking for information instead of feeling like you need to ask for a job offer? And so I kind of was trying to ask questions to see like, what's the low hanging fruit here? So you can often start with people you already know, and oftentimes those are the best people to go to. And so I want to encourage you, if you're thinking about like having to just meet a lot of people or ask a lot of people for a lot of things, that actually what I think might be helpful is like letting the people know what you're looking for. So sending a sample job posting, sending an updated resume, asking for introductions in their network to people at organizations that may be, where you're thinking about. And if you do, want to expand your network, which of course I applaud and support, think about where you are doing your learning, what you like to learn, because that can actually be a great way to meet people with whom you have actually something in common. So I love that. Think about shared experiences or identities that might lead to networking opportunities or affinity groups where there might again be some camaraderie right there at the beginning. It doesn't feel like, walking into a room with 500 people trying to give you their business card, right? I think more intimate settings are more effective, at least for me personally. And then just thinking about What are the kinds of things you want to be doing? Are there co-working opportunities? There's a lot of different co-working apps and collectives these days. Are there workshops and webinars you're attending? And are you in touch with people or following up or kind of establishing a connection with folks you meet there? So instead of just casting like this really wide net, I want you to think about like a smaller net and building introductions and connections from there, because I think that'll make your outreach potentially more effective. And when it comes to meeting new people, let's also think about how that could be easy and feel more organic and not quite like, we're just spinning our wheels. We don't want to spin our wheels. Let me just whoops. So my hope would be, are you getting traction in your networking efforts? If you're avoiding networking, hopefully you can be, if not eager, maybe eager is too much, too high of a threshold here, but like at least curious about reconnecting with folks or meeting new folks. I think that that's a really good sign. If you are not sure what to say about yourself, having some custom templates so that you can just hit send. We do have these. They're part of the accelerator programming folks get. So there's like 250 templates. And you can just create your own, modify them with the template, with the structure we give you, and then keep them in a Google Doc so that you can just reuse them and send them off really easily. Sometimes just having some language that you can go to and tweak just a little bit makes it so much easier to put those invitations and make those contacts. And if you're feeling nervous about asking for help, remember that you are also a source of help. So think about how you can offer support, introductions, encouragement, insight of your own. A lot of people think they just come into the process and are takers, and I think that can make folks uncomfortable. But really, there's not. There's a lot that you have to offer. It's not always going to feel like a one-for-one trade at the same time, but over time, if you commit to this practice, I think you'll find plenty of opportunities to contribute. And finally, I want to talk about giving yourself permission to re-engage. And what I mean by re-engage, I think my clients would call this starting over from square one, but I don't really see it that way. I have watched enough people job search, for over 8 years now, to know that almost nobody has a job search that starts and goes seamlessly until they get an offer. That's not how this works for most professional adults. I wish it did, but what tends to happen is people start and then, their kid gets sick or they get sick or things get busy at work or, some other priority pops up and then they have to re-engage their job search. And telling yourself that you need to start all over again, I think can be really demoralizing. And I think oftentimes, especially with our clients, it's not true. Like they have assets that they're picking back up to use. They may even have applications that are still open floating out there. So I really think of this as just like re-engaging, putting your foot back on the gas pedal. And so I encourage you, if you're telling yourself like, I'm starting over from scratch, like consider modifying your language there. And just as a reminder, like for better or worse, I know it's frustrating, but your job search may need things that other people's job searches don't. So you may need more time. You may need to shift priorities and put it on the back burner, whereas other people can, continue to prioritize it. You may need to put in more effort than at other times in this process. So it's not like consistency looks like, perfect 2 or 3 or 4 hours a week, every single week. There's a lot of ups and downs in terms of what your engagement will look like. And I think that's normal and fine and part of what allows us to have a life while we job search and not just turn job searching into a 24/7 job. And you may just need to get some rest. A lot of times people, tell themselves like, I'll do X and Y after I get a new job. Starting a new job is stressful. People forget that because they're just focused on the exit of their current job. So you may want to take your PTO, enjoy your life, keep your travel plans while you're doing this, because you will certainly experience stress as you start your new job. I'm sorry if that's a surprise, but I've also seen this happen. Like you're going to want to start your new job from a rested place. If you are not already using these things, these could be really helpful. So some kind of tracking tool. I don't have a favorite tracking tool. I like but I do like to see that my clients are tracking things. It allows me to help them assess where they're at in the process and where we can make improvements and refinements to help them, get the results that they're looking for. And without it, what I find is people are working from a somewhat faulty memory. Wanting a new job can feel very consuming, but it's not really a metric that we measure and capture. I want to know, are you looking at jobs? How many are you applying to? How many have you heard back from? That sort of thing. Strategy. We are not, if you can't tell, encouraging our clients to maximize the amount of jobs. The metrics that we focus on are between 4 to 8 quality applications over the course of 4 to 8 weeks. And most of our clients start to get interviews within that time period. So I'm going to say that one more time. 4 to 8 targeted, tailored, aligned applications. So no spray and pray approach, targeted and aligned. We're writing for the job posting. When we do that for 4 to 8 weeks, people often start interviewing. I would say, between 80 and 90% will see results. I want you to know the industry you're in. People who work for the government, you're not going to hear back in 8 weeks, probably. People at some large nonprofits also may not. But some people hear back within hours, within days, right? So there's like a lot of variety in that. But I don't really start assessing my client's resume or direction until I see those 4 to 8 weeks. I mean, obviously we start with addressing their resume, but I don't sort of second guess our work until I've seen some of their results and I understand the industry they're in and have some sort of benchmark and expectation around their consistency in order to see results. Let me know if you have any questions about that process. I'm happy to share a little bit more. Your job search may benefit from a break. Just take a break. It's okay. I've had people say things like, is it okay to take a break? And first of all, no one needs my permission to take a break. But I think the question there is like, am I destroying my job search chances? Am I, self-sabotaging here? And I don't think so. Like, unless your break is permanent, which might be okay too. I mean, maybe your boss quits and your life gets easier. Maybe you get moved around in your current role and things are different. That stuff does happen. But in the meantime, if it doesn't happen, take a break. Take the time away, do something else. I think that's part of what helps us maintain the longevity that can sometimes be required in this process. And you may need support. Maybe it's not working if you do this on your own and it's time to ask for help. So if you have been working, on your own on all of this, maybe it's time to ask, for support. And trust me, lots of people are doing that. Hopefully, what you'll notice by being in this space is that you have generated more insight and knowledge. So instead of starting from scratch, you can remind yourself and go back to some of that writing that we documented, right? Like, okay, what did I learn about myself? Where did I want to go with this? Is that still the case? Okay, great. Let me move on to the next step here. Hopefully you can reacquaint yourself with your, improved resume or your improved resume and process and have greater comfort in communicating your value and knowing that you are either building a resume that does that or that you have a resume that does that for you. I am hoping beyond hope that you have more effective applications. Like I said, we're not a volume-oriented job search strategy shop. Like everything our clients submit is on purpose and tailored. So if you're struggling to get traction, sometimes it's a matter of volume and your resume simply being too generic to really stand out. You may be getting interview opportunities. So I've had clients, think they dropped the ball, that their job search needs a total relaunch, but they actually still have applications out and people are still reading them and pinging them. So maybe that will be happening for you as well. If you are in a more reflective, passive job search place, having conversations with your network, that may be a way that you know that you're here. Reminding yourself that you can walk away from red flags. This is so important, but it kind of goes back to that point in the beginning where like you're the CEO. And a lot of people feel that when they see a compelling job posting that they are like obligated to say yes, just simply when they apply. And you're not. No. So I want you to really remember that as you go through this process, you can always give yourself an exit. And an exit does not mean that you are burning bridges. There's a difference between the two. Both can come in handy, but you can just walk away from red flags. And hopefully, being able to connect with yourself and your community, whether that means, having the time you want for your search or spending time in professional learning opportunities with folks that you admire and are happy to connect with. I think that can be a really important way to re-engage. It can be, a little bit more fun, perhaps, than tailoring your resume. So if being around other people is something that energizes you, that might be one way to do it. And then just continuing to learn and optimize your efforts and refining. Some people learn things about jobs and organizations, and it shapes what they look for as they move forward. And I encourage you, like, the self-reflection stage is not step one and then we're over it. It's what we do the whole time. Really, we're doing some level of self-reflection pretty much every stage here. So don't just like set it and forget it. Check in with yourself here. All right, so I am down to my last few slides. I'm happy to take some questions. So I'm going to put my call out for final questions now. Sneak another sip of water here. I show these images almost every time I do a webinar, and I was actually talking about them on a podcast episode I was recording last week, because I was looking, for images for my slideshows and that I do all the time here. And I was looking for something that was like clearly a job seeker. And I got these, which I felt was super dramatic. But I have been told many times over by clients and webinar participants that actually this is exactly what a job search looks and feels like. And I know it can be overwhelming and it can be really isolating. And you can be wondering if you're on the right track and is this, oh my gosh, ever going to end? But what I have seen time and time again is you just sometimes don't realize how close you are to making a shift that's going to change everything. You could be a lot closer than you think. And I just wanted to share some feedback from clients that I think demonstrates that. Like, all of these people who have really nice results and good things to share at one point felt like this. So it's not like if you're here, you're doomed. If you're here, it's normal. You can work from here. You can turn things around and move things forward. I do want to share again that we have our accelerator, our fall accelerator, which is 4 weeks of feedback on your resume from yours truly, which I basically live to do. It would be an honor and a pleasure to help you reconfigure your resume and write something that's going to help you actually get traction. It's 4 weeks of live office hours with other mission-driven job seekers who are lovely and kind, and it's not a huge group, so you definitely get a chance to ask questions and hear from other folks. And there's just it's very energizing and a supportive environment to have other people and learn from other people, and a great natural way to kind of build some connection. And we also offer 4 weeks of co-working. So it's a good way. It's a month long. It is just a way to start your job search off on the right foot. And within 4 weeks, you will know what a target role is for you and why. You will know what to do with your resume and how. You could very well have a very different looking LinkedIn profile and cover letter. And with those assets in place, people have a fundamentally different experience job searching, typically. So if you're interested in that, you can learn more at workwonderscareers.com. You can go to our homepage, it's there. And make sure that you use our discount code for October 50. Not only does it take $50 off the registration price, but it also gets you a full strategy session with me. So we will work together on your job search questions and fears and your resume and try to get you in a really good place. So let me see if anyone has any final questions as I'm wrapping up. I know there's always a little bit of a delay, but I want to thank Jen, who's always here, Corey, David, Michael. I don't think I missed anyone. And anyone who's watching and didn't jump in the comments, thank you so much for being here. If you are watching the replay and you want to drop questions here, feel free to tag me. I will comment a link to the website so you can, with the discount code, so you can check it out. And if you have any questions about our program, feel free to send me a DM here on LinkedIn or connect with me on any of these other social platforms. Thank you so much for joining me today and taking time out of your busy schedule to talk job searching. If there's anything I can do, don't hesitate to let me know. And I hope you have a great rest of your day. Thanks so much.